Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with co-host David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO. Welcome back, David. We've missed you, and we've been thinking about you as you've been dealing with the damage caused by Hurricane Ian.
Thanks, Jessie. Thanks. I'm actually wearing my Sanibel Strong T-shirt right here, raising money to help support my hometown community, which was really decimated by this hurricane. So it's literally been 4 weeks since the hurricane, and the town still looks like it is a war zone. So visit sanibelstrong.us and donate and get your shirt today if you want. But that's a whole separate issue that I'm dealing with on a personal level, but glad to be back and sort of in this sort of temporary location for now until I can be back in my home.
Well, we're glad to have you back. And we're also glad to have DeVaris Brown, CEO and co-founder of Meroxa. He's our guest today. So thank you so much for being here with us, DeVaris. Could you please start from the beginning and just tell us your whole story, how you came to be where you are and a little bit about Meroxa?
Oh, wow. That's how much time do we have? I'll give you
We'll give you a 3-minute timer.
Yeah. I'll give you the abbreviated version. I am DeVaris from Meroxa. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, went to University of Illinois, studied math and computer science. I've always just kind of been in and around the space of providing developers the tools that they need to be productive. And, my co-founder and I, we were at Heroku building the world best, platform as a service for web applications. And we realized, the data ecosystem is just as fragmented and unwieldy as the web development ecosystem was back in 2007. So we took it upon ourselves to form a company, which is called Meroxa. We are building a streaming application platform as a service where we empower developers and teams of engineers to build applications and solutions that leverage real-time data. Our thoughts are essentially at the end of the day, we want to make sure that real-time data is the default for any organization, and then you're not bottlenecked by kind of a silo data team, and your innovation can be unbounded because it's just code. All right, there's no drag and drop and all that type of stuff. And so that's the short abbreviated version. Located in the Bay Area, California, over in Oakland, and been here for a while. So that's me and company and where I'm from and all that good stuff.
Well, very cool. Well, I have a connection with you. I grew up in Illinois, not Chicago. Everyone always assumes Chicago when you say Illinois, but Moline, Illinois. And then I lived in Union City, which is like right south of Oakland.
Yeah. Moline is out there in the Quad Cities, right?
Quad Cities, that's right. You know it. Yep. Well, great to have you here.
Likewise, glad to be here.
Yeah, good stuff. Great to meet you, DeVaris. So it sounds like you guys are obviously working on some cool stuff. I'm intrigued. And so we're going to jump right into our first topic, which is the future of apps as is real time. And so that's something that you mentioned prior to this as well. And so let's dive in, because you describe your product as a developer-centric code-first tool, right? That lets software engineers maximize their time spent building data products, as opposed to maintaining fragile data systems that weren't designed for developers. So that's really interesting. I'd love for you to explain this a little more, dig a little deeper into what you guys are doing at Meroxa to help transform businesses into using real-time data applications.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that as a practitioner, you walk into any modern company and streaming is a default. All right, there's and I think when I talked to you in the green room, it was like, think about Netflix, right? If I log on to Netflix, do I really want to wait 5 minutes for me to get recommended movies? No, right? But that's essentially what would happen if I were to sit there and wait for the machine learning models and recommendation models to recompute and all that type of stuff, right? And so essentially what we're, there's a lot of innovation and that is being blocked because the data components are just so crappy, right? Like it's just really, really, really crappy tools that have, crazy configuration profiles and operating paradigms and things like that. And you multiply that by like just the order of complexity around just having multiple tools that need to talk to each other in some standard and some non-standard ways. You just walk into an organization, they got a data ingestion tool, a data orchestration thing, a data quality or data monitoring thing. They got a metadata thing. They got a data catalog. You got streaming, but you got to run that on Kubernetes and have Zookeeper do that. Then, you got to deploy your applications on Docker. Then, it's like all these things that you have to maintain and update and understand. So you have to be this like T-shaped or, not literal, but figuratively T-shaped kind of engineer where you have depth and breadth, because you need to understand each one of the things at a very deep level, but then also understand how all of these things can talk to each other. And so for us, what we realized was like, look, those that have the resources and time and expertise are best leveraging real-time data, right? Like all the big big technology companies. But what about that, 2-person startup that's just getting up and going, all right? That wants to, monitor, they're building their things, right? And they don't have the luxury of hiring out a huge data team, right? Like, what do we do for them? Am I going to tell them to go to 8 to 10 different UIs just to build a pipeline? Or, like that doesn't make any sense. Am I going to tell them to sign 8 to 10 different annual contracts just to get up and going? Like for us, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And so what we've done is basically said, like, look, if you can write code, if you can declare a method off of a variable or an object, you too can be a data engineer, because really all you really need to know is where your data is coming from, where it's going, and what format it needs to be when it gets there. And that doesn't mean, I know everybody's like, oh, well, I can think of all these like solutions and that do all those things, but that's not really the case, right? Like at the end of the day, you don't get points for stitching together the thing. You get points for the experience. And if it's taking you 6 months or, some ungodly amount of time to build that experience or get the infrastructure right so you can deliver the experience, you probably already lost the interest of your end consumer, right? And so for us, it's just democratizing this space because we know that real-time data is going to be the default.
I love that. Yeah, I love that Netflix example because, we're always talking to companies about, the fact that like SMBs are always challenged with trying to keep up with these big tech companies. And one of the things that we found in having these podcasts, the more companies we reach out to, the more companies like yours that we bring on here, is what we're learning is that there's a lot of companies emerging that are building tools that are designed for SMBs to be able to compete better with those big tech companies because of automations that they're able to create that essentially enable them to do some things like real-time data, machine learning, whatever, that historically only those big tech companies that have deep pockets have been able to do.
Yeah, but I mean, the other piece of that is like, why am I building all this infrastructure if my like you think about Instacart, right? My job is to sell groceries, all right, and to be the virtual supply chain for local economies, all right? Like that's what Instacart is, all right? And so at the end of the day, or the on-demand supply chain, all right? So at the end of the day, do I really need to build a Kafka message parser? Or like, just stuff like that. Like it doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is like, look, let's just get back to innovating and making it easy for people to innovate. And let's get the machinery out of the way, because yes, there is some like engineering pride about building your own thing, but at the end of the day, it's like we're a business that sells groceries or that delivers things. So why is it that we have to spend all of this time getting the world that we want to operate in into like a a decent shape, and then we're able to do the thing. And like, let's just flip that on the head. Bring your business logic, bring your value, and then we can go from there.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. Love
Absolutely. What, David?
I said, yeah, I love that.
Yep, absolutely. So are we ready to move into the next topic? All right, let's do it. So the next one is data liberation as a business imperative. So I know, we were talking about this a little bit in the beginning. I guess Cecile and I, this came in, when we were first planning for this discussion. That's how this topic was inspired. So let's dive right into data liberation and as a business imperative. And I think in the note it was, and as a juxtaposition of the priorities of CISOs and the priorities of data scientists and developers and engineers. Could you start us off on this topic, DeVaris?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, data liberation takes the form of many buzzwords, right? So, so you've heard like data mesh and data contracts and like all this stuff. But what people are really saying is like, yo, just unbreak these silos, all right? Like,
oh yeah, makes sense.
Like at the end of the day, that's really all that matters is like, I need data to do my job. I don't want to have to send a ticket to a team and like,
let the data flow.
Exactly. No pun intended. So quick aside, the name that we got Meroxa from is based off of Merox, the Merox process in the oil refinery process, right? And so the way that you remove impurities from kerosene, which is jet fuel, is the Merox process. So if data is the new oil, we kind of want to power the refinery. So you got to let it flow. So yeah, I mean, like that's really what the teams want to have, and that's what they want to do, right? Is just let the data flow and let it be reliable, let it be omnipresent, right? Like it should encompass everything that I need to make decisions for the betterment of the company and on behalf of the user, right? So whatever role you got, you're going to need data to be successful in that, right? Like if it's not measured, you can't understand what success is. And so at the end of the day, everybody's like, and that's why you're seeing all these tools for like, oh, there's a data tool for the marketing team. There's a data tool for the revenue team. There's a data tool, observability for the engineering team. There's like all of these things. And at the end of the day, this is all these teams are requiring these things, but then you're still bottlenecked by this one team that you've dumped every responsibility on inside of your organization, right? So how do you democratize that? How do you make sure that the teams have what they need to do their job and to make decisions and to innovate? And so what I've been saying is like, look, data mesh is cool in theory, right? But like actual teams that try to do this, it's just a disaster, right? Like you can't have multiple copies of data. What's the source of truth? Like all these things. You have to be very, 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 very intentional about it. And so people like Chad Sanderson have talked about data contracts, data modeling, and all these things. Like, look, I came from the first .com boom, right? We were talking about that stuff way back then. So it's like now it's starting to come into play because we have all of these solutions that have just exploded the amount of control and the flexibility that people have. That's not necessarily a good thing, right? And so if I'm going to have data flowing for the CISO or the data scientist, I need to go talk to them and see like, hey, what data are you actually using? What do you need so that I can build a data product for you to go consume so you can do your job a lot faster. You know what the data is going to look like. You know the intervals that it's going to flow. You know where it's going to be. You know what the data contains. And then here's an interface for you to go consume that, right? Like that could be an API. That can be a data lake. That could be a database, right? Like be all these things. But the biggest thing is when you are trying to interface with other parts of the organization, the first thing you need to have is that intentionality, right? And I think that's a conversation that's lost because people are just like, I just want to Zoom. But if I go build a house, I'll say, yo, David, man, we got to go down and go build houses, restore houses that were affected by the hurricane. If I just show up with a hammer and nails and not even talk to the people that need the houses, right? Some people can have disabilities. Some people, like all these things. just be intentional about it, right? And that's really the thing that a lot of people are missing out of this like data liberation conversation.
That's a great point.
It's a good point. I think one of the challenges that I've seen with a lot of, especially the larger the organization, is data privacy and security, because you often have different divisions that want access to data, and they don't have access to it, and they come to us and they're like, hey, we need this and we need that, and we tell them, okay, good, where do you want it to go and what's it linking to? And they don't even know, because they don't even have access to the data.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we need to talk to this other team and figure out how we can get access to that data so that we can do that. And that seems to be a big challenge, especially for these larger organizations. You have thousands of employees. You can't give access to that data to everybody, because now how do you control what's happening to that data? You have one rogue employee, and that becomes a huge issue for that company. And so that is also a very big challenge. Yeah. You want to make sure that everyone has access to the data so that they can do certain things with it and activate it and use it effectively. But on the other hand, you have to control who has access to that data, and limit that in ways too, because then, otherwise it becomes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, these companies have the responsibility to protect our data that they're holding. So at the same time, that means, unfortunately, limiting access to that data internally as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it in too much of a commercial for Meroxa, but I 1,000% agree, right? Like, at the end of the day, engineers and security are always going to be at odds, right? Like security is always just like, yo, what are you doing? Please stop. Like, that's always going to be the default security response. But look, at the end of the day, if the data is flowing in real time, all right. And so, I talk about, one of the projects that we're working on, right, is like we're working with the Department of Defense. There's a lot of people that need information in real time. A lot of them have different security clearances. So it basically, you see the amount of levels of granularity, like it gets less and less as your security clearance gets less, or, is lower. But because real-time data is flowing, like, I can set up 4 security buckets with 4 clearances. I can do stream processing on data that flows in real time, the same data set, and then dump it in, redact whatever it is, just based off of that thing, based off of your security clearances. Like, that's the world that I'm trying to live in, right? Like, I'm trying to, again, that intentionality where it's like, hey, you're this random team that needs access to this data set and these tables. Unfortunately, you can't have it. But what I can give you is this. And if I give it to you in this bucket or this place, is this going to be enough for you to go do your job? And that's just a conversation, right? And like, unfortunately, a lot of people think that software can solve a lot of this stuff. And I would say, yeah, it can do a lot, but most of it is just people and process, all right? Like, let's just go have a conversation before we actually embark on this journey. Let's have a conversation to understand what is really going on and what are the outcomes that we really want to see.
It's a great point. Which, by the way, I don't know if you guys heard, my Google Home came on and it started playing a Spotify station called Data Liberation. If anyone was interested, there's a Spotify radio station.
That's funny.
Okay. Things I learned today.
Yeah, it's a hot topic apparently, and a radio station. No,
That's
this
funny.
is all good stuff. I mean,
yeah, that's a good point, DeVaris, and I think that you made a note of not making this commercial, but the reality is people need to know that there are solutions available to tackle these challenges, because we run into this all the time. And a lot of times companies are just like, well, we just can't do that because we don't have access to that data. And it's like your own data, it's internal, but you don't have access. And so they're challenged internally with how to solve problems. And so, it's important for them to know that there's solutions, available to help them with these challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, the thing is like I say, these ingredients have been around for a very long time. We just learned how to manipulate them and make better meals in people. I mean, like that's just what it is at the end of the day. And I think, like, like you say, knowing what's out there is one thing, but like having a clear understanding as to the outcomes that you want to see is also equally as important, because then it helps you work backwards to figure out what is the solutions or the methods that are going to help you achieve whatever your vision is at the end of the day. And I think that like, we put, especially as leaders, right, we put a lot of responsibility on our teams to just deliver, and a lot of times like we don't give them the soft instructions to like, yo, let's just go talk to these people that can help unblock them and unbound them. And I think like, yes, Meroxa can do a lot, but so can a conversation, right? Like, so can planning, so can intentionality, right? Like that's the thing where, a lot of people, there's another side rant. This is like podcast material anyway, right? But it's kind of, when I talk to people about this and I realize what I'm saying, it's like I grew up using the scientific method all the time. I think of experiments, right? Like I got, there's a hypothesis, there's, expected
same thing in marketing.
It's just like, yo, this is we just make it so much harder than it needs to be. Right. And it's like, if I think about this thing as an experiment, as a canned thing that has an objective, that has, there's methods to go do that, then we make it a lot easier to understand the impact of the decisions that we make.
That's a really important point. I'm glad you mentioned that. Keeping it simple, like going back to the scientific method and just keep it simple.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you. These clips are like, we're recording live on LinkedIn and YouTube and Twitter, but then we repurpose these. It goes out as a podcast, and we've been repurposing and putting mobile videos on TikTok. And I've been monitoring what a lot of marketers are saying on TikTok, and they're talking a lot about, producing content that's pain informed. So, a lot of the time we want to just like educate our audience, but we need to educate them on their pains so that they know what the solution would be. So like, here is your pain. So what would you both say would be like those pain, like how would you inform people of their pain so they would know there's a solution to become data liberated?
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as like, it's so funny how people like kind of crystallize things. But while you were saying that, I thought of the infomercials at like 2:00 in the morning, where it's like they ask you 5 questions. You're like, yeah, I feel that way. Yeah, I do that.
Yes,
that's happened to me. Let me go ahead and do this for $19.99 plus shipping and handling, right? Like that's that's what I thought about as soon as you said that, right? Like, oh wow, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think to answer your question is the pains that we see, it just depends on who we're talking to. Right. And so if I'm talking to a business leader or a technical decision maker, who's our primary kind of persona that we're going after, it's more so about saving money, saving time, and saving resource, or empowering resource. Right. And so if I can get the same amount of innovation and velocity without spending more money, time, and hiring more people, then yeah, I might be more inclined to listen. All right. To individual contributors like engineers, we say like, yo, we're the Lucius Fox to your Batman, right? Like we know that you have to go out and do these heroic acts, but here's a tool set for you to go make that a lot easier, right? We're your Batarang if you want to have that, and we're the Batmobile. And that's really the thing, especially, as we've learned, engineers always, they know that they need a platform as a service. They just want to be the ones that built it. All right. And so if they can see themselves in that platform, because, usually if I go talk to a CTO, tell them like, yo, Meroxa is great. First thing they do is kick it over to an engineer. They're like, yo, vet this out. And now it's kind of like, okay, well, do I see myself in this platform? Do I have enough freedom and flexibility to complete the jobs that I want? Right. Like that's the conversation the conversations that we have.
That's interesting. Well, should I jump into that next topic? Is there anything else you guys want to add on data liberation? I guess I didn't give you a chance, David, to answer that. So pain-informed decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly an interesting question. I think that there's we've seen a lot of situations where a pain point is related to someone trying to solve a problem, right? And so when we talk to someone about trying to solve that problem, I think the biggest thing that we see is people are also often trying to build a solution to solve a problem. And I think that, you know, that's okay if you have the sort of, you know, time, if you don't have a time constraint related to what you're trying to solve. But I think that 9 times out of 10, there's already a solution out there that exists to solve your problem. And you're probably better off actually using an existing solution, um, and then using that solution to solve your short-term problem, you know, solve your problem on the short term. And if in the long term you think you can build something to work more effectively, then by all means go ahead and do it. But I think that a lot of times people go to solve the problem by building first. And I think that produces more problems you know, than you're, you know, expecting. So the outcome is very, very long. And a lot of times we see that fail because of that. And so you go into this problem and you're like, oh, I'm going to solve this whole problem. 6 months later, you haven't solved the problem yet. And so
Yeah.
if there's a solution that will allow you to do it today, by all means, do that solution today.
Totally.
And then, you know, use that solution, even if it's a short-term solution, use that as a solution that brings you and closes the gap to solving the long-term solution.
That is really great advice. Well, we typically on our third topic get into tech stack, and we like to ask you what your favorite tools are. This could be anything, you know, from your data stack to whatever, just like makes your life, you know, more efficient. And we try to keep up with what you're saying and tag them in the comments. So
Okay.
Curious, what are your favorite tools in your tech stack?
I mean, I might be biased, but you know, Meroxa is everything that we do. Like we eat our own. Well, sorry, you can't say eat your own dog food anymore. We drink our own champagne or Martinelli if you're non-alcoholic. You know, because it's just so, it's like I wish I would have had this so much earlier in my career. You know, we talked about I gave the like preamble, but I was an engineer on one of the world's largest distributed systems coming out of school, right? Like we were building stuff at Microsoft, right? Like hundreds of millions of users and all of that, and just trying to keep all that stuff coordinated and getting alerts and, you know, doing automations and things like that. It's like, yo, this would have been so much easier for us to get going. I think other things that I use and I'm super happy about, Red Panda, the Kafka replacement. Just like it, I dig it. Also got to give a shout out to our open source tool Conduit, which is a Kafka Connect replacement. So if you start to see what I'm doing here, I'm building the modern data stack here without talking about anybody else.
What was that third one? You said Meroxa, Red Panda data, and
then Conduit, our Kafka Connect replacement. So now I can have basically a JVM free streaming environment. So just imagine what that does for your bills at the end of the month. I like Cockroach DB. I like what they're doing.
You said Cockroach?
Yeah, Cockroach DB. Yeah, you know, that's a good homie of mine, Nate Stewart. I've known him for years. But they're doing some great things on the database front that I really like. Materialize is also a really cool kind of is based off of the Timely Data Flow project, but they're doing like a streaming database. Trying to think what else. Oh, got to shout out a Heroku replacement because, you know, I like Render. Been using them quite a bit for like side projects and things because Heroku just basically imploded, which is very, very sad to me. Trying to think what else. I really like Retool. That's something that we use quite a bit internally to build quick dashboards to do, you know, just do quick things and give visibility around the organization. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and I build everything in Ember JS Like everybody's, on to all these fancy things like, they use React, they use Vue, some of these other things that are out there, Next.js, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I like the predictability and the convention over configuration when I'm building single page applications that Ember.js gives me. So that's pretty much the DeVaris stack and
I
things
like
that I
that.
use.
The only one I couldn't find was cockroach. And what was the second word? Because I don't think maybe they're just not on LinkedIn. Maybe that's like,
Yeah, cockroach DB. Yeah.
I'm trying, but I'll spell it out just because I don't think they're on here.
Oh yeah,
Oh, is it
cockroachlabs.com.
Cockroach Baker by chance?
No. It's
No.
Cockroach Labs.
Cockroach Labs.
Yeah,
Labs.
you need to see. Yeah.
Now everybody can. This is like great for your buddy Cockroach Lab, though. Everybody's gonna go search him now.
Yeah.
No, that's
Hey,
great.
wait.
David, have I ever asked you that question? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Our tech stack, you'd have to ask DW, not me. I'm the wrong person.
But like, what's your favorite? Like, even like your day to day, like your Calendly link. Like what's your? If you had to pick like three.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Calendly has saves a lot of time on my calendar, but I really like Jira. I mean, I know we use Jira internally for all our management of all our tickets and development. So I think that's another big one. What else? I like QuickSight also. We've been using QuickSight for a lot of the reporting internally, and I think that's probably would be my third.
Interesting stuff. So
we have got a question from DW actually.
Do we? Oh, we've got two comments. So I think this is probably related to our topic earlier when we were talking about infomercials. Act now include a bamboo sticker. Apart from the government, what other clients does Meroxa have?
Yeah, we go all the way from 2-person startup all the way to Fortune 5, right? Like that type of thing. So we serve a lot of different verticals and use cases, and everything from like oil and gas and energy to financial services to HR stuff and that type of thing. Like have data will move, and that's really the biggest thing. It's been really cool to see how people are leveraging us in all the weird wacky ways that they do, because you just never, when you build a general platform, it's always just kind of, it's interesting to see how people see their value in you, right? Also, before we go, I have to say, David, you're probably the first person I've ever heard say that they love Jira. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, it cut me off for a second. I was like, somebody said that out loud?
I like it because it's organized a lot of things for us internally.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
what was I just gonna say? I forgot what I was.
What would be like another developer project management platform that, because like for marketers, there's like Monday.com and ClickUp and like all these other ones, but they're obviously not as extensive as what developers need.
Yeah, I mean, we use GitHub projects internally because it keeps everything all in for developers, keeps everything all in the same place where they're spending most of their time anyway. But there's another tool that I like called Linear for developers, and it's pretty cool. I mean, like, look, there's a ton of these project management kind of tools that are out there.
Yeah,
I've done everything from Notion to Google Sheets to some of these Jira to.
Did you like Notion? I've heard a lot about Notion. I've never tried it.
Cool. Notion's cool. It's like if SharePoint wasn't built by Microsoft.
Interesting.
It's really, really, really useful for us. That's what we use internally too. But there's all these different places where. But I will say this: the thing I like the most, if you're using Jira and Confluence at the same time, you can actually embed the ticket stuff in the Confluence articles, and like it just makes for a very, very interesting kind of like, and it updates and all that type of stuff. So you go
Yep.
to the doc, you can see like, oh yeah, for this project, this is the tickets that we had, and I can actually see the status. So having a multiple click through the thing. So
Definitely. Well, that's cool.
Yep.
I didn't know that. We do have 7 minutes, so if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you one more question.
yeah.
So I'm just curious, if you could go back to when you first came into the industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Ooh, number one piece of advice that I would give myself.
Take your time.
I'm like going back to 21-year-old DeVaris, and it's scary, right?
Yeah.
Like, ooh, yeah, you probably shouldn't have did that with dog.
Exactly.
I would say, yeah, that was what, 2004. I would say, and this is just general guidance to everybody, like, ask better questions. Don't think you know everything, right? Like we talked about the intentionality and scientific method and like all that type of stuff throughout the conversation, but it's taken me a while to get there, right? And like, at the end of the day, I'm pretty good at what I do, but I got to that next level realizing like there were things that I didn't know, and I just need to humble myself and ask questions to understand. Like, I think the thing back then that what I did was people assumed because I went to certain school or I did certain projects that I knew certain things, and I would just buy into it because I'm like, yo, fake it till you make it. But the thing that's helped me ascend, professionally and even personally, right, is just ask questions so that I can understand it, so I can make sure that there's no ambiguity, and I can deliver the thing that the people actually want, right? Like, you can go through the 5 whys, you can go through all that type of stuff. Like, there's all these frameworks and things that you can do, but at the end of the day, it's just be empathetic and ask more questions or ask better questions. That's how I boil down to it.
That really
Yeah.
is a
It's
big.
it's so true. It's a great point. And for anyone that's read Good to Great, I don't know if you have,
Mhm.
you learn that the best leaders are humble. And so, it's those that can admit that they don't know everything that actually will be the, most successful, because they rely on other people that know more than them. And you end up building a team of good people around you, and that makes you much more successful.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like the thing that trips me out is I've had all these signals around my life. David DW is going in. I've had all these
I think
signals,
he's got a delay.
yeah, around in my life that have told me. Like, my granddad was he built a aluminum smelting plant, basically like aluminum recycling, right? A metal recycling. He didn't have I don't know how, I don't think he graduated high school, but somehow he got a degree from Illinois Institute of Technology, going to night school or whatever. But I always used to ask him, like, how are you able to do the things that you do? And he just tell me flat out, just hire people that are smarter than you and you learn from them. Right. And
Mhm.
I never really understood that until like I got older, because you spend so much in your earlier career trying to prove you are that person, right?
Right.
But it's like, nah, in team sports, I got the best person on, like there's these things. My granddad's telling me to go find the best team. And then now I get to professional work where it's like I'm battling with the person next to me for bonus and title, and it didn't make sense. And so there was like this individuality baked in, but it was like, yeah, we can go so much farther and do so many things when you just humble and just say, look, this person is the best at whatever it is that they do in the world, at whatever it is that their expertise is, but so am I. But like, we can learn from each other and just be humble in that.
I think DW is asking. So the last question he asked, by the way, was what tech stack things do you dislike?
Kubernetes, easy. Right? Like I don't understand how Kubernetes is a thing. I don't understand like why people do this to themselves every single day. I mean, it is the worst developer. Like, it's like the best and worst thing at the same time. Like, I love the orchestration aspect of it. I love the paradigms that they introduced around containerization and execution of containers and all of that. But running that, and I've done this at multiple companies now, is literally the worst developer experience I've ever seen on anything that's been this widely adopted. Like, I just don't get how this is a major company platform that they, you know, give out to people, and they expect people to like that aren't rocket scientists to run this. Like, if you see, the other thing that I hate is like people trying to make SQL into everything. Like, I've seen so many of these like SQL as this startups, and it's like, have you seen some of these gnarly SQL queries that look like War and Peace? Like, right? Like, it's not readable. You can't follow this stuff. Like, we just need to stop all of that. You know, yeah, those are the two things where I'm just like, yo, there has to be something better. And somebody's going to do this at some point, and I will throw them every amount of money that I have. But like, we gotta get away from doing things that are just making it more complex for people to innovate. And as you can see, there might be a theme here for me, but
yeah,
absolutely. Well, I think we've finally come to that time. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up our banner that if anybody would like to create an Omni IQ account, you can just scan this QR code if you are watching the video version of this, of course, not from a podcast. Also, I am sad to report that Josh, our other co-host who's typically here, won't be able to attend the Deconstructing Data podcast for a while, though he is still helping us on the back end. So, you know, we'll be glad maybe one day he can come back. But if you find the Deconstructing Data podcast interesting, you might like checking out our Omni IQ, like I said. So you can literally just upload a CSV file of your first party data, see complementary analytics on it, and then, you know, create an audience with machine learning based on your first party data. So it's still molded and, you know, it's new, it's being molded. So customer feedback is really essential. So create an account, it's free. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear from listeners about the show. So please share any of your qualitative feedback with info@bdex.com. But that's all I have for today. It's been a great time talking with you, DeVaris. Thank you for joining us. And David, I'm so glad you're back.
Me too.
Right.
Me too. I'm glad to be back. And DeVaris, it was great meeting you, and glad you could join us.
Likewise. Give another shout out for the Cinebell t-shirt, man.
Yes, let's
thank
put
you.
David on full screen because earlier when he was saying that.
Yep, that's right.
What's the website, David? Maybe I can put that in the comments here.
Sure. Yeah, it's just sanibelstrong.us.
sanibelstrong.us, you said?
Yep.
All right, I'm putting it in the comments now.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, no problem. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and close out with our outro video here.